Hello everyone. As Mary mentioned, I am a PhD scholar at the Wolf Institute, and I'm studying Syrian musical and cultural life in Turkey. So, as a Syrian American, I became academically interested in Syrian culture and politics since about 2011 in particular, which was the start of the Syrian conflict that has displaced nearly half of Syria's population, including my own extended family. So since then, I've been really engaged in kind of trying to understand what's happening to Syrian society as a result of this forced migration. So it's important to note that what I've proposed for my PhD, I'm in the second year of my PhD, so I'm still collecting my data for my fieldwork, but it's very much based on insights that I gained from fieldwork in 2018 that I did for one of the Wolf Institute's flagship projects, or better known as the Living in Harmony Project. So that's where I kind of began thinking about some of the questions that I'm exploring for my PhD. So for the project, I traveled to Istanbul to interview Syrian musicians and music teachers in the city. Now there are about 600,000 Syrians living in the metropolis. And apart from Istanbul, there are now currently, 3.6 million Syrians residing in various Turkish cities, towns, and refugee camps on the southern border of Turkey. So while I was conducting this research, I began thinking about various questions related to music and forced migration, which I've now turned into a PhD project. Um, so ethnomusicologist Adelia Reyes asserts that music has an integral place in the refugee experience and that it may tell us something about the protracted sociocultural effects of war. So Reyes and other scholars exploring forced migration have demonstrated that the refugee experience does indeed affect the way music is listened to, the way it's performed, the way it's constituted in displaced communities. And in light of the contemporary Syrian refugee crisis, my thesis or my study, I'm hoping to offer a timely combination of approaches in ethnomusicology and forced migration to kind of investigate how Syrian musicians are embedding themselves, how they act as agents to embed themselves in their new homelands, where changes in performance practice, physical space, and cultural norms must be accounted for. So at the heart of this research, I'm really trying to understand the social and artistic challenges Syrian musicians face in their efforts to adapt to a new host context and also survive economically. I'm trying to also explore how they experience marginality and multiculturalism in Turkey, particularly in Istanbul. And finally, I'm trying to kind of extrapolate from their experience an analysis of the Syrian community's current social and cultural profile while displaced in Turkey. So I'm posing, some of the following questions to help me kind of through my research. How do Syrian musicians respond to their changing social and historical circumstances? How do they use their craft to create a voice for themselves in Turkey? Are there structural and political forces that support or impede this expression? Who is the audience in exile, and various others? Are they adapting their music to suit local tastes? Is there even a difference between Turkish music and Syrian music, especially considering the Ottoman legacy in the region as a whole? So it's these questions that I'm hoping to answer through an ethnographic study of Syrian musical life in Turkey, which is why I'm now speaking to you from Istanbul, where I will be based for this next year, conducting my fieldwork. And because I'm still in the middle of my fieldwork, I don't really have any definitive conclusions to share with you today, but what I can say is that, so far, I'm arguing that Syria's cultural imaginary, especially for Syrians living in Turkey at the moment, it is in fact shifting or changing towards a kind of revival of Ottomanism, or a remembrance of a shared Ottoman history in the region, a history that was really stamped out after the rise of the Assad regime in Syria. So I'm hoping to prove this shift more clearly through my PhD dissertation. But I'm going to end very quickly with a visual example of what I hope to capture through the study of Syrian musical practices in Turkey. This is the Bezmi Alim Valdi Jami, or better known as the Dolma Bahçe Mosque, a Baroque style masjid that opened in Istanbul in 1855. And when I first saw this mosque, I was struck by its European style architecture. so much so that I thought it could easily be mistaken for a church in London. So the mosque was built during the 19th century at the height of Ottoman contact with Western Europe. And this got me thinking then about the idea of tradition as a construction. So like the example of the idea of Assyrian musical tradition, right? When in reality, our traditions are always a mix of thoughts, sounds, and rituals that we collect from elsewhere and then reinvent to make our own. So I'm hoping to kind of document this cultural contact between Syrians and others living in Turkey and how this contact is transforming Syria's cultural imaginary. Thank you very much for listening.